In the ancient history of Israel, few characters stand out as much as Nehemiah. His journey from a mere cupbearer to a visionary leader is a remarkable testament to how determination and faith can transform not only an individual, but an entire nation. Nehemiah lived in Susa, the capital of the Persian Empire, serving in the court of King Artaxerxes. His position as the royal cupbearer was one of great trust, as he was responsible for tasting the king's wine to ensure it wasn't poisoned. This proximity to power would be crucial for the future events that would change the course of Jerusalem's history. Nehemiah's story begins with disturbing news about the state of his homeland. Through his brother Hanani, he learned that the walls of Jerusalem were in ruins, and its gates had been burned. This information deeply shook Nehemiah, awakening in him a sense of purpose that would lead him on an extraordinary mission. His immediate reaction was to turn to God in prayer, seeking guidance and strength to face the challenge ahead. This attitude of seeking divine wisdom before acting would become a hallmark of his leadership. With a heavy heart over Jerusalem's situation, Nehemiah continued his duties at the court. However, his sadness did not go unnoticed by King Artaxerxes. When questioned about his state of mind, Nehemiah saw a unique opportunity arise. With courage, he explained to the king the plight of his hometown and requested permission to return and rebuild it. Surprisingly, the king not only agreed, but also offered resources and protection for the journey. This crucial moment demonstrates how Nehemiah knew how to seize circumstances in his favor, transforming a position of servitude into a platform for change. Nehemiah's journey to Jerusalem was more than just a geographical shift. It was a transition of roles and responsibilities. Upon arriving in the city, he did not rush to announce his plans. Instead, he spent 3 days quietly observing the situation, assessing the extent of the damage, and formulating strategies. This cautious and well-thought-out approach would be fundamental to the success of his mission. Nehemiah understood that good leadership begins with a deep understanding of the challenge at hand. After his initial assessment, Nehemiah gathered the local leaders and shared his vision for rebuilding Jerusalem. His ability to inspire and motivate was evident when he said, "Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, so that we will no longer be in disgrace." These words touched the hearts of the people, who responded enthusiastically, "Yes, let's rebuild." Nehemiah's ability to unite people around a common goal would be crucial in overcoming the enormous challenges ahead. The reconstruction project faced immediate opposition from leaders of neighboring regions, such as Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite. They mocked the effort, questioning the people's ability and legitimacy to undertake such a task. Nehemiah, however, was undeterred. His response demonstrated a blend of unshakable faith and practical determination. "The God of heaven will give us success. We, his servants, will start rebuilding." This attitude of confidence in the face of adversity would be a defining characteristic of his leadership. As the work progressed, Nehemiah displayed remarkable organizational and management skills. He divided the wall into sections, assigning specific responsibilities to different families and groups. This strategy not only made the work more efficient, but also created a sense of ownership and commitment among the participants. Each family working on their own section of the wall felt personally invested in the project's success. Nehemiah's leadership showed that great achievements are possible when each individual understands their role in the bigger picture. The opposition to the project was not limited to words of disdain. Soon, Nehemiah and his people faced threats of physical attacks. In the face of this danger, Nehemiah once again demonstrated his ability to adapt and strategic leadership. He organized a defense system, arming the workers and establishing an alert plan. "Don't be afraid of them," he encouraged the people. "Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome, and fight for your brothers, your sons and your daughters, your wives and your homes." This combination of faith and practical action inspired confidence and courage among the builders. The book of Nehemiah is not limited to the physical reconstruction of Jerusalem. It also addresses the spiritual and social renewal of the people. Nehemiah faced issues of economic injustice, excessive taxation, and even the practice of slavery among the Jews themselves. With firmness and compassion, he confronted those responsible for these unjust practices, demanding restitution and reform. His approach shows that true leadership cares not only about visible projects, but also about the moral and social well-being of the community. The completion of the wall in just 52 days was an impressive testament to Nehemiah's leadership effectiveness and the dedication of the people. This remarkable feat did not go unnoticed, even by Israel's enemies. The biblical text records, "When all our enemies heard about this, all the surrounding nations were afraid and lost their self-confidence because they realized that this work had been done with the help of our God." Nehemiah's success not only physically strengthened Jerusalem, but also restored the pride and national identity of the Jewish people. After the wall's completion, Nehemiah continued his reform work. He organized the public reading of the Law of Moses, leading the people to a moment of collective repentance and renewal of their covenant with God. This emphasis on the law and spirituality shows that Nehemiah understood that a nation's true strength lies not only in its physical defenses, but in its commitment to fundamental values and principles. His leadership encompassed all aspects of community life, from security to worship. Nehemiah's story is a powerful example of how the vision, courage, and faith of an individual can catalyze significant changes in a society. His journey from cupbearer to reformer teaches us valuable lessons about leadership, perseverance, and the power of principled action. Nehemiah's legacy is not limited to the walls he rebuilt, but extends to the spiritual and social transformation he inspired. His story continues to inspire leaders and visionaries today, reminding us that with determination and faith, we can overcome great obstacles and make a difference in our communities. The exile and captivity of the people of Israel marked one of the darkest and most transformative periods in Jewish history. This painful chapter began with the rise of the powerful Babylonian Empire, led by the ambitious King Nebuchadnezzar II. Babylon, located in the Mesopotamian region, modern-day Iraq, was an expanding power determined to dominate neighboring nations. Israel, a relatively small kingdom strategically positioned between larger empires, became an inevitable target of this expansion. Israel's fate was about to change drastically, leading its people to face challenges that would test their faith, identity, and resilience like never before. The fall of Israel was not a sudden event, but a gradual process that unfolded over several decades. The kingdom had already split into two after Solomon's reign, Israel in the north and Judah in the south. The northern kingdom, Israel, fell first to the Assyrians in 722 BC, leaving Judah as the last bastion of Israelite identity. Judah, centered in Jerusalem, managed to maintain its independence for longer, but its position was precarious. Judah's leaders often found themselves forced to make risky political alliances, sometimes with Egypt, sometimes with Babylon, in an attempt to preserve their autonomy. These political maneuvers, however, would ultimately seal the kingdom's fate. The reign of Jehoiakim in Judah marked a critical turning point. In 605 BC, Nebuchadnezzar launched his first campaign against Jerusalem. Although the city was not completely conquered at this time, Judah was forced to become a vassal state of Babylon. As part of this agreement, many members of the Jewish elite, including young people from the royal family and nobility, were taken to Babylon. Among these exiles was Daniel, whose story of faith and wisdom in the Babylonian court would become legendary. This first exile, although limited in scale, was a harbinger of what was to come and marked the beginning of a new era for the Jewish people. The situation in Judah continued to deteriorate in the following years. King Jehoiakim, dissatisfied with Babylonian rule, attempted to rebel. This decision proved disastrous. In 597 BC, Nebuchadnezzar returned with his army, besieging Jerusalem. This time, the city was forced to surrender. The new king, Jehoiakim, along with thousands of prominent citizens, artisans, and warriors, was taken into exile in Babylon. This second group of exiles included the prophet Ezekiel, whose visions and prophecies would become a source of hope and guidance for the people in exile. The city of Jerusalem, though severely weakened, still stood, now under the rule of Zedekiah, a puppet king installed by the Babylonians. The final blow came in 586 BC when Zedekiah, against all advice, also rebelled against Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar's response was swift and relentless. The Babylonian army returned, this time determined to eradicate any possibility of future rebellion. The siege of Jerusalem lasted approximately 18 months, leading the city to desperate conditions of famine and disease. When the defenses finally gave way, Jerusalem's fate was sealed. Solomon's temple, the center of religious life and a symbol of divine presence among the people, was looted and completely destroyed. The city's walls were demolished, and most of the surviving population was taken into exile. The journey to Babylon was a traumatic experience for the exiles. Families were separated, and many died on the way due to the harsh conditions of the journey. Upon arriving in Babylon, the Jews found themselves in a completely foreign environment. The grandeur and opulence of the city with its hanging gardens and imposing ziggurats starkly contrasted with the simplicity of Jerusalem. The exiles had to adapt to a new language, new customs, and a society that worshipped foreign gods. This cultural shock posed a significant challenge to the Jewish people's identity and faith. Surprisingly, life in exile was not characterized by constant oppression. Many Jews managed to establish themselves and even thrive in their new environment. They formed communities, maintained their traditions, and in some cases achieved positions of influence in Babylonian society. The prophet Jeremiah, who remained in Judah, had advised the exiles to build houses and settle down, plant gardens and eat their produce. Jeremiah 29:5. This advice reflected a new reality. The exile would not be a temporary experience, but a prolonged period during which the people would need to find ways to preserve their identity while adapting to the new context. One of the greatest challenges faced by the exiles was maintaining their faith and religious practices away from the temple. The temple had been the center of religious life, the place where sacrifices were offered, and where it was believed that God's presence dwelt in a special way. Its destruction forced a profound transformation in Jewish religious practice. It was during this period that synagogues began to gain importance as centers of prayer and study. The Torah, the writings of the prophets, and other sacred texts took on a central role in religious life, partly replacing the role that the temple sacrifices had previously played. The exile was also a period of intense theological reflection. The Jews struggled to understand why God had allowed such calamity to befall His chosen people. Many saw the exile as divine punishment for Israel's sins, especially idolatry and social injustice. This interpretation led to a renewed commitment to the law of Moses and a determination to avoid the mistakes of the past. At the same time, prophets like Ezekiel and the so-called Second Isaiah, author of chapters 40, 55 of the book of Isaiah, offered messages of hope, proclaiming that God had not abandoned His people and that He would one day bring them back to their land. The period of exile also saw a flourishing of Jewish literature and thought. Many of the books of the Hebrew Bible were compiled, edited, or written during this time. The stories of the patriarchs, the Exodus, and the conquest of Canaan gained new relevance, offering hope and inspiration to an uprooted people. The Psalms, many of which express longing for Zion and trust in God's faithfulness, became particularly significant. The book of Job, which deals with the problem of the suffering of the righteous, may also have been composed or finalized during this period, reflecting the existential struggles of the exiled people. The experience of exile had a profound and lasting impact on Jewish identity. Paradoxically, it was in this period of uprooting that many of the elements that would define Judaism for millennia took shape. The emphasis on Torah study, the practice of communal prayer, the development of a tradition of scriptural interpretation, which would later evolve into the Talmud, and a more universal understanding of Israel's role among the nations all have their roots in the exile period. Moreover, the experience of living as a minority in a foreign culture provided a model for Jewish survival in the diaspora in the following centuries. The end of the Babylonian exile came with the rise of the Persian Empire. In 539 BC, Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon, and the following year issued a decree allowing the Jews to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. This decree marked the beginning of a new era, but it did not signify a simple return to the previous status quo. Many Jews chose to remain in Babylon, where they had established lives and communities. Those who returned found a Jerusalem in ruins and faced the challenge of rebuilding not only the city and the temple, but also community and religious life. The restoration process would be long and difficult, as seen in the stories of Nehemiah and Ezra. The story of the Babylonian exile and captivity is ultimately one of resilience, adaptation, and transformation. Facing what seemed to be the end of their national and religious existence, the Jewish people not only survived, but emerged with a strengthened and renewed identity. The lessons learned and the changes that occurred during this period shaped Judaism in ways that still resonate today. The experience of exile taught that identity and faith can survive and even flourish under the most adverse circumstances, a lesson that has sustained the Jewish people through many subsequent challenges throughout history. Nehemiah, even while living in the opulence of the Persian court in Susa, never lost his connection to his homeland. His heart remained deeply tied to Jerusalem and the Jewish people who resided there. This connection was not merely nostalgic, but a profound bond that shaped his identity and life purpose. Despite the physical distance, Nehemiah kept himself updated on Jerusalem's situation through travelers and messengers who occasionally arrived in the Persian capital. Every piece of news, every report was absorbed with eager interest, fueling his concern and desire to help. Nehemiah's interest in Jerusalem went beyond mere curiosity. It was a burning passion, an internal calling that consumed him. He was not content with just hearing sporadic news. He actively sought information, questioned travelers, and sent messages whenever possible. This constant quest for information demonstrated not only his love for the city, but also a sense of responsibility toward his people. Nehemiah understood that even from afar, he had a role to play in his nation's destiny. Nehemiah's privileged position as King Artaxerxes' cupbearer could easily have made him forget his roots. After all, he enjoyed comfort and prestige in the most powerful court of the known world at the time. However, Nehemiah used his position not for personal gain but as a platform to stay informed and eventually act in favor of Jerusalem. His loyalty to the Persian king did not diminish his commitment to his own people, demonstrating a remarkable ability to balance different loyalties without compromising his integrity. Nehemiah's interest in Jerusalem was not only sentimental, but deeply spiritual. For him, Jerusalem was not just a city, but the symbol of God's presence among his people. The state of the city reflected, in his view, the spiritual state of the nation. Thus, his concern with the broken walls and burned gates went beyond physical security. It was a concern with his people's religious and cultural identity. Nehemiah saw in the restoration of Jerusalem not just a construction project, but an opportunity for spiritual renewal. Nehemiah's reaction upon receiving news about Jerusalem's deplorable state reveals the depth of his interest. The biblical text tells us that he sat down and wept, fasting and praying for days. This emotional response shows that his interest was not superficial or fleeting. It was a deep commitment that affected him to his core. His prayer at this moment was not just a plea for help, but a national confession, taking responsibility for the sins that led to the exile and Jerusalem's destruction. Nehemiah's interest in Jerusalem led him to courageous and potentially dangerous action. When the king noticed his sadness and asked the reason, Nehemiah seized the opportunity to explain the situation of his hometown. This moment reveals not only his concern for Jerusalem, but also his willingness to risk his position and personal safety for his people's sake. His response to the king was carefully thought out, demonstrating both respect for the monarch's authority and an unwavering determination to help his city. The readiness with which Nehemiah formulated an action plan when the king gave him permission to return to Jerusalem shows that his interest was not merely contemplative. He had thought deeply about Jerusalem's needs and was ready to act. His request for letters of authorization and building materials reveals careful planning, indicating that his interest in Jerusalem had led him to consider in detail how he could help, practically and effectively. Nehemiah's interest in Jerusalem did not wane with distance or time. Even after receiving permission to return, he maintained his discretion, conducting a nighttime inspection of the walls before revealing his plans. This cautious approach shows that his interest was not driven by a desire for personal glory or quick recognition. He was genuinely concerned with the city's well-being and its inhabitants, and he wanted to ensure that his intervention would be successful and lasting. Nehemiah's ability to inspire others to share his interest and vision for Jerusalem was remarkable. When he finally revealed his plans to the local leaders, his passion and commitment were contagious. His words, "Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem so that we will no longer be in disgrace," resonated deeply, uniting the people around a common purpose. His personal interest in Jerusalem transformed into a collective movement of restoration and renewal. Nehemiah's interest in Jerusalem was not limited to physical reconstruction. He was deeply concerned with the social and spiritual well-being of the people. Throughout his leadership, he addressed issues of economic injustice, corruption, and religious neglect. This demonstrates that his interest in the city was holistic, encompassing all aspects of community life. For Nehemiah, the true restoration of Jerusalem meant not just strong walls, but a just society and a people faithful to God. Even after the walls were rebuilt, Nehemiah's interest in Jerusalem did not wane. He continued working to strengthen the city, implementing policies to increase its population and ensure its ongoing security. His long-term commitment shows that his interest was not driven by a desire for quick personal achievement, but by enduring love and a sense of responsibility for his homeland. The legacy of Nehemiah's interest in Jerusalem extended far beyond his own life. His leadership and example inspired future generations to maintain an active commitment to the holy city. The story of how his love for Jerusalem led him to action became a model for Jewish leaders over the centuries, encouraging a continuous sense of connection and responsibility to the city, even among those living in the diaspora. Nehemiah's story teaches us that true interest in a place or a cause is not passive, but active and transformative. His example challenges each of us to consider, for which causes do we nurture such deep interest that we are willing to act, even in the face of great obstacles? Nehemiah's passionate interest in Jerusalem not only changed the fate of a city, but left a lasting legacy of faith, courage, and commitment that continues to inspire people around the world today. Nehemiah's mission to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem was a monumental endeavor that transformed not only the physical landscape of the city, but also the spirit of its inhabitants. The walls, more than mere stone structures, represented the security, identity, and autonomy of the Jewish people. Their restoration was crucial to protect the city from enemy attacks and to reaffirm the Jewish presence in the land. Nehemiah understood that a city without defenses was vulnerable not only to physical threats, but also to cultural and spiritual erosion. Thus, the reconstruction of the walls became a powerful symbol of rebirth and hope for a nation struggling to rise again after years of exile and oppression. The restoration project faced significant challenges from the outset. The rubble accumulated over decades of neglect was vast, and resources were limited. Additionally, the local population, demoralized by years of hardship, initially showed skepticism about the project's feasibility. Nehemiah, however, approached these difficulties with a mix of unshakable faith and astute pragmatism. He began by organizing the community into work groups, assigning specific sections of the wall to different families and guilds. This strategy not only distributed the workload efficiently, but also created a sense of ownership and pride among the participants. External opposition quickly became one of the greatest obstacles to reconstruction. Leaders from neighboring regions, such as Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite, saw the restoration of Jerusalem's walls as a threat to their own power and influence. They employed a variety of tactics to hinder progress, from mockery and intimidation to threats of armed attacks. Nehemiah responded to these challenges with a combination of constant vigilance and trust in God. He organized the workers to always be ready to defend themselves, with one hand on the work tool and the other on a weapon. This powerful image of warrior builders became a lasting symbol of determination and resilience. The construction method employed by Nehemiah was notable for its efficiency and inclusiveness. He involved not only noble families and religious leaders, but also integrated artisans, merchants, and even residents of neighboring cities in the reconstruction effort. This comprehensive approach not only accelerated the work, but also strengthened the social fabric of the community. Each completed section of the wall became a testament to the power of unity and teamwork. Nehemiah also demonstrated wisdom by prioritizing the reconstruction of the city's gates, understanding that these were crucial not only for defense but also for trade and communication. The speed with which the walls were rebuilt is a testament to Nehemiah's inspiring leadership and the people's dedication. In just 52 days, the basic structure of the walls was completed, a feat that seemed miraculous even to Israel's enemies. This rapid progress not only strengthened the city's physical defenses, but also greatly elevated the population's morale. Seeing the walls rise day by day instilled a new sense of possibility and hope. The successful completion of the project proved that, with strong leadership and a unified purpose, even the most challenging tasks could be accomplished. The restoration of the walls had a profound impact on daily life in Jerusalem. With the city now secure, inhabitants could focus on rebuilding their lives and institutions. Trade flourished as merchants felt safer bringing their goods. Religious practices, which had been compromised by the lack of security, could be resumed with renewed vigor. The very existence of the walls served as a constant reminder of divine protection and Israel's unique identity among the nations. Nehemiah understood that the walls were not just a physical barrier, but a foundation upon which communal and spiritual life could be rebuilt. The reconstruction process also served as an opportunity for Nehemiah to implement social and spiritual reforms. He addressed issues of economic injustice, canceling debts, and redistributing land to alleviate the burden on the poor. These actions demonstrated that a city's true security lies not only in its physical fortifications, but also in the justice and compassion of its social system. Nehemiah also reintroduced the public reading of the law, reaffirming the centrality of the Torah in the people's lives. Thus, the restoration of the walls became a catalyst for a broader renewal of Israelite society. The completion of the walls marked a turning point in post-exilic Jerusalem's history. The city, which had been a source of shame and pity among neighboring nations, once again became a symbol of resistance and faithfulness to God. The restored walls served as a visible testimony to divine providence and human determination. They not only protected the inhabitants from external threats, but also provided a sense of identity and belonging. For a people who had experienced the uprooting of exile, having a fortified city to call home was deeply significant. Nehemiah's method for maintaining the city's security after the wall's completion also deserves attention. He instituted a system of guards and established strict rules for the opening and closing of the city gates. These measures were not only practical security practices, but also a way to instill a sense of civic responsibility among the inhabitants. Every citizen had a role to play in maintaining collective security. This community vigilance system strengthened social bonds and created a shared sense of purpose among Jerusalem's residents. The restoration of the walls also had significant geopolitical implications. A fortified Jerusalem altered the balance of power in the region, reaffirming the Jewish presence in the land and serving as a bulwark against foreign influences. The walls not only physically protected the city, but also helped preserve the cultural and religious integrity of the Jewish people in the face of assimilation pressures. Nehemiah understood that Israel's survival as a distinct nation depended as much on clear physical borders as on spiritual boundaries. The legacy of Nehemiah's restoration of Jerusalem's walls extended far beyond his time. Throughout Jewish history, the image of a walled Jerusalem remained a powerful symbol of resistance and faithfulness. In times of persecution and exile, the memory of the rebuilt walls served as a source of hope and inspiration. Nehemiah's story reminded the Jewish people that, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable adversity, restoration and rebirth were possible with faith, leadership, and unity. For future generations, the story of Jerusalem's wall reconstruction became a powerful metaphor for personal and communal renewal. Just as Nehemiah led the people in rebuilding the city's physical defenses, each generation is challenged to rebuild the walls of their faith, culture, and values. Nehemiah's example continues to inspire leaders and communities to face seemingly insurmountable challenges with courage and determination. The final lesson from Nehemiah's mission to restore Jerusalem's walls is that a community's true security and strength lie not only in its physical structures, but in the faith, unity, and commitment of its people. The walls were important, but they were the external reflection of a deeper internal transformation. Nehemiah did not just rebuild stone walls, he revitalized the spirit of a nation. His example reminds us that, with vision, leadership, and unwavering faith, it is possible to overcome great obstacles and create a lasting legacy of renewal and hope. Nehemiah's success in rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem was not a stroke of luck, but the result of meticulous planning and careful execution. From the moment he conceived the idea to the project's completion, Nehemiah demonstrated remarkable strategic thinking and precise action. His approach combined long-term vision with attention to practical details, serving as a model of effective leadership in complex projects. The first crucial step for Nehemiah was to obtain the approval and support of King Artaxerxes. He understood that without the Persian monarch's official blessing, any attempt to rebuild Jerusalem would be seen as an act of rebellion. Nehemiah's preparation for his meeting with the king was exemplary. He carefully chose the right moment, waiting until his sadness over Jerusalem's situation was noticed by the king. When questioned, Nehemiah was ready with a clear and concise response, showing respect for the king's authority, but also expressing his passion for the project. His request to the king was specific and well thought out. He asked not only for permission to travel, but also for letters of authorization for the governors of the provinces he would cross, ensuring safe passage. Additionally, Nehemiah requested a letter to Asaph, the keeper of the king's forest, to obtain timber for the gates of the citadel, the city wall, and his own residence. Nehemiah's attention to logistical details was remarkable. He did not settle for mere verbal approval from the king, but secured official documents that would legitimize his mission. These documents were not just bureaucratic formalities, they were essential for navigating the political complexities of the region. Nehemiah understood that he would face opposition and needed all the authority he could muster to overcome obstacles. By obtaining these letters, he not only secured material resources, but also established a solid legal foundation for his project. Once in Jerusalem, Nehemiah continued his meticulous planning. Before publicly revealing his plans, he conducted a nighttime inspection of the city walls. This action demonstrates his cautious approach and understanding of the importance of having accurate information before acting. The nighttime inspection allowed Nehemiah to personally assess the extent of the damage and begin formulating a detailed reconstruction plan. He understood that direct knowledge of the situation was crucial for effective planning. After his inspection, Nehemiah gathered the community leaders to present his plan. His presentation was carefully crafted to inspire and motivate. He not only described the dire state of the walls, but also emphasized the opportunity for change and the project's importance for Jerusalem's future. Nehemiah skillfully connected the city's physical reconstruction with the restoration of the people's pride and identity. His ability to communicate a clear and inspiring vision was key to gaining community support. Nehemiah's plan for reconstruction was notable for its organization and efficiency. He divided the wall into sections and assigned specific responsibilities to different groups and families. This approach not only distributed the work equitably, but also created a sense of ownership and commitment among the participants. Each group working on their section of the wall felt personally invested in the project's success. Nehemiah also ensured that the necessary resources were allocated efficiently, coordinating the supply of materials and tools. Nehemiah's foresight regarding potential challenges was another crucial aspect of his planning. He anticipated external opposition and developed strategies to deal with it. This included organizing a defense system with armed workers ready to respond to any threat. Nehemiah also implemented an alert system, using a trumpet call to quickly gather workers in case of an attack. This preparation for contingencies demonstrates his comprehensive strategic thinking. Nehemiah's planning also included considerations for the workers' morale and motivation. He understood that a project of this magnitude would require not only physical effort, but also emotional and spiritual resilience. To this end, Nehemiah incorporated elements of spiritual encouragement into his plan, constantly reminding the people of the divine significance of their mission. He led by example, working alongside his compatriots and sharing the same risks and hardships. Flexibility was another important aspect of Nehemiah's planning. Although he had a clear plan, He was prepared to adjust it as needed in response to unforeseen challenges. When faced with threats of attack, for example, Nehemiah quickly adapted his plan, organizing workers into shifts to maintain constant vigilance. This ability to adapt to changing circumstances without losing sight of the final goal was crucial to the project's success. Nehemiah's planning extended beyond the physical completion of the walls. He also considered how the city would be governed and protected after the reconstruction. This included appointing responsible officials, establishing procedures for opening and closing the city gates, and implementing measures to increase Jerusalem's population. This long-term planning shows that Nehemiah saw the reconstruction of the walls not as an end in itself, but as part of a broader vision for Jerusalem's future. Nehemiah's attention to financial details was another crucial aspect of his planning. He ensured that resources were used efficiently and transparently, avoiding accusations of mismanagement or corruption. Nehemiah even renounced the benefits to which he was entitled as governor to avoid burdening the people. This financial integrity was fundamental to maintaining the community's trust and support throughout the project. The final success of Nehemiah's project, the completion of the walls in just 52 days, is a testament to the effectiveness of his planning and leadership. This remarkable achievement not only strengthened Jerusalem's physical defenses, but also revitalized the nation's spirit. Nehemiah's meticulous planning, combined with his ability to inspire and mobilize the people, turned an apparently impossible task into a reality. Nehemiah's approach to planning and action offers valuable lessons for modern leaders facing complex projects. His combination of strategic vision, attention to detail, adaptability, and personal integrity continues to be a model of effective leadership. The story of Jerusalem's wall reconstruction reminds us that with careful planning, inspiring leadership, and unwavering determination, even the most daunting challenges can be overcome. Nehemiah's journey to rebuild Jerusalem's walls was marked by fierce and constant opposition. From the beginning, he faced enemies determined to stop the progress of the work. The main antagonists were Sanballat the Horonite, Tobiah the Ammonite, and Geshem the Arab. These regional leaders saw the reconstruction of Jerusalem as a threat to their power and influence. The opposition began with mockery and ridicule, with Sanballat sarcastically questioning if the Jews thought they could revive the stones from the heaps of rubble. Tobiah added that even a fox could knock down the wall they were building. These provocations aimed to demoralize the workers and sow doubts about the project's viability. Nehemiah responded to this initial wave of opposition with a mix of fervent prayer and unwavering determination. He did not let the provocations discourage him but turned to God for strength and guidance. His prayer, recorded in the book of Nehemiah, is a powerful testimony of his faith. "Hear us, our God, for we are despised. Turn their insults back on their own heads." This spiritual response shows that Nehemiah understood that the battle was not just physical or political, but also spiritual. He trusted that God would vindicate his people and thwart the enemy's plans. As the work progressed and the walls began to take shape, the opposition intensified. The enemies moved from words to threats of violent action. They conspired to attack Jerusalem and create confusion among the workers. This escalation of opposition presented a significant challenge for Nehemiah. He had to balance the need to continue the work with the responsibility to protect the people. His response to this threat was twofold. He intensified prayers, seeking divine protection, and implemented practical security measures. Nehemiah's strategy to deal with the threat of violence was notable for its wisdom and effectiveness. He organized the workers into shifts, so that half worked while the other half kept watch, armed with swords, spears, and bows. Even those working on construction did so with one hand on the tool and the other on the weapon. This powerful image of warrior builders became a lasting symbol of determination and vigilance. Nehemiah also implemented an alert system, using a trumpet call to quickly gather people in case of an attack. Besides external threats, Nehemiah also had to deal with internal challenges that threatened to undermine the project. Social and economic tensions arose among the people, with some complaining of exploitation by the wealthier members. This situation could have easily divided the community and weakened the reconstruction effort. Nehemiah addressed this crisis with the same combination of prayer and decisive action. He convened a public assembly to confront those responsible for the injustice and demanded restitution. His ethical leadership and concern for social justice strengthened the people's unity and thwarted the enemy's attempts to create internal divisions. Nehemiah's opponents, seeing that their previous tactics had failed, resorted to more subtle strategies. They attempted to lure Nehemiah into a meeting, ostensibly to negotiate, but in reality planning to harm him. Nehemiah, discerning their true intentions, responded with a statement that became emblematic of his determination. "I am carrying on a great project and cannot go down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and go down to you?" This response demonstrates not only Nehemiah's acumen in detecting traps, but also his absolute dedication to the mission entrusted to him. Another tactic employed by the enemies was an attempt to discredit Nehemiah personally. They spread false rumors suggesting that he planned to declare himself king and rebel against Persia. These accusations were particularly dangerous, as they could have reached King Artaxerxes and jeopardized the entire project. Nehemiah responded to these slanders with a direct denial and a prayer for divine strengthening. His personal integrity and transparency throughout the project served as his best defense against these unfounded accusations. The persistence of the enemies in their attacks tested Nehemiah's and the people's resilience. There were times when fatigue and discouragement threatened to set in among the workers. Nehemiah faced these moments of weakness with constant encouragement and reminders of the mission's importance. He exhorted the people to remember the Lord, who is great and awesome, and to fight for their families and homes. This ability to motivate and inspire in the face of continuous adversity was crucial to keeping morale high and the project ongoing. One of the most insidious tactics employed by the enemies was attempting to use false prophets to deceive Nehemiah. They hired the prophet Shemaiah to try to scare Nehemiah, suggesting that he hide in the temple to save his life. Nehemiah, however, discerned that this was not a genuine message from God and refused to give in to fear. His response, "Should a man like me run away?" demonstrates his courage and confidence in divine protection. This incident illustrates the importance of spiritual discernment in the face of seemingly well-intentioned but deceptive advice. Despite all these challenges and opposition, Nehemiah and the people persevered, completing the wall reconstruction in just 52 days. This remarkable feat not only thwarted the enemy's plans, but also served as a powerful testimony to divine providence. The biblical text records that when the enemies heard of the project's completion, they were afraid and lost their self-confidence because they realized that this work had been done with the help of our God. Nehemiah's perseverance transformed a situation of shame and vulnerability into a demonstration of God's faithfulness and power. The story of the opposition faced by Nehemiah offers valuable lessons for leaders and projects of all kinds. It teaches that great undertakings will almost always face resistance, and that perseverance, vigilance, and faith are essential for success. Nehemiah's approach, combining fervent prayer with practical action, maintaining focus on the mission while dealing with threats, and inspiring others through personal example, remains a model of effective leadership in times of adversity. Nehemiah's ultimate triumph over opposition was not just a personal or even national victory. It was an affirmation of divine purpose. His story reminds us that when we align ourselves with God's will and persevere in the face of challenges, we can achieve things that seem impossible to human eyes. The reconstruction of Jerusalem's walls, accomplished despite fierce opposition, stands as a lasting testament to the power of faith, determination, and inspired leadership. Nehemiah's strategy to rebuild Jerusalem's walls while keeping the city safe from enemy attacks is a remarkable example of leadership in times of crisis. Facing constant threats, Nehemiah developed a plan that seamlessly integrated reconstruction work with defense measures. His approach not only ensured the project's progress, but also strengthened the spirit of unity and cooperation among the people. Nehemiah understood that security and work could not be treated as separate issues. They needed to be addressed simultaneously and in a coordinated manner. At the heart of Nehemiah's strategy was the efficient organization of the people. He divided the workers into groups, assigning each specific responsibilities in both construction and defense. Half of the men worked on the reconstruction while the other half stood guard, armed with spears, shields, bows, and armor. This division of labor ensured that work could continue uninterrupted while the city remained in a constant state of alert. The flexibility of this system allowed roles to be quickly reversed in case of imminent threat. Nehemiah implemented an effective communication system to coordinate defense efforts. He stationed a man with a trumpet by his side, ready to sound the alarm at the first sign of danger. This rapid alert system allowed workers spread along the wall to quickly gather in case of an attack. Nehemiah instructed the people, "Wherever you hear the sound of the trumpet, join us there. Our God will fight for us." This combination of practical preparation and spiritual confidence bolstered the people's morale and determination. Leadership by example was a crucial aspect of Nehemiah's approach. He and his trusted men did not shirk from hard work or the duty of vigilance. The biblical text recounts that neither I nor my brothers nor my men nor the guards with me took off our clothes. Each had his weapon, even when he went for water. This personal dedication of Nehemiah inspired the people to maintain their commitment, even in the face of constant fatigue and danger. Nehemiah also demonstrated skill in adapting his strategies as circumstances changed. When the threat of nighttime attacks increased, he ordered workers from distant areas to stay in Jerusalem overnight, serving as additional guards. This measure not only strengthened the city's defenses, but also created a sense of community among the workers, many of whom were from neighboring towns. Nehemiah's ability to adjust his plans in response to new challenges was crucial for the project's ongoing success. The teamwork promoted by Nehemiah went beyond mere physical cooperation. He cultivated a spirit of unity and shared purpose among the people. Nehemiah frequently reminded the workers of the importance of their mission, connecting it both to their national identity and their faith in God. This approach helped transform a diverse group of individuals into a cohesive team, united by a common goal. The shared sense of purpose helped the people persevere, even when facing fatigue and discouragement. Nehemiah's defense strategy was not limited to physical measures. He understood the importance of moral and spiritual support in maintaining the people's resilience. Nehemiah led the people in regular prayers, seeking divine protection and guidance. He also encouraged the people to trust in God, reminding them of past victories and divine promises. This spiritual dimension of defense strengthened the people's determination and helped them maintain courage in the face of constant threats. A notable aspect of Nehemiah's approach was his attention to the workers' basic needs. He ensured that the people had adequate access to food and water, understanding that well-fed and hydrated workers would be more efficient in both construction and defense. Nehemiah also cared about the workers' proper rest, implementing a shift system that allowed for recovery periods. This attention to the practical details of the workers' well-being was fundamental to maintaining productivity and readiness throughout the project. Nehemiah's defense strategy also included measures to protect the most vulnerable members of the community. He organized families to defend each other, ensuring that those who could not participate directly in construction or guard duty still had a role in collective defense. This inclusive approach strengthened the social fabric of the community and ensured that everyone felt part of the reconstruction and defense effort. Nehemiah demonstrated skill in managing internal conflicts that could have weakened the city's defense. When tensions arose between different groups within the community, he quickly addressed these issues, promoting dialogue and seeking fair solutions. His ability to maintain internal unity was as important as his strategy against external threats. Nehemiah understood that a divided community would be vulnerable, no matter how strong its physical defenses were. The effectiveness of Nehemiah's strategy was evident in its impact on Israel's enemies. The biblical text recounts that when the adversaries saw the people's determination and readiness, they became demoralized and abandoned their attack plans. The combination of diligent work and constant vigilance created an image of strength that served as a powerful deterrent against aggression. Thus, Nehemiah's best defense ended up being the visible demonstration of the people's unity and commitment. The success of Nehemiah's approach to defense and teamwork is evidenced by the rapid and successful completion of the project. The walls were rebuilt in just 52 days, a remarkable feat given the challenging circumstances. This outcome not only strengthened Jerusalem's physical defenses, but also revitalized the nation's spirit. The experience of working together in the face of adversity created strong bonds among the people, preparing them for future challenges they would face as a community. The story of the reconstruction of Jerusalem's walls under Nehemiah's leadership offers valuable lessons on leadership, teamwork, and resilience in times of crisis. His integrated approach to defense and reconstruction demonstrates that, with careful planning, inspiring leadership, and a spirit of unity, great achievements are possible even in the face of formidable opposition. Nehemiah's legacy continues to inspire leaders and communities to face challenges with courage, creativity, and unwavering faith. Nehemiah's mission in Jerusalem went far beyond the mere physical reconstruction of the city's walls. He understood that to truly restore the nation, a spiritual revival and profound social reform were necessary. Nehemiah recognized that strong walls were not enough to protect a morally weak or spiritually empty society. Thus, he embarked on a comprehensive campaign of reform and renewal that touched all aspects of community life. His vision was to create not only a fortified city, but also a just society and a people faithful to God. One of Nehemiah's first steps in spiritual reform was the reintroduction of the public reading of the Law of Moses. He worked together with Ezra, the priest and scribe, to organize a large assembly where the Torah was read and explained to the people. This significant event lasted several days and had a profound impact. The people listened attentively, many of them weeping as they realized how far they had strayed from God's commandments. This moment of collective confrontation with God's Word served as a catalyst for spiritual renewal, leading to a renewed commitment to the divine covenant. Nehemiah also addressed issues of social injustice that were corroding the fabric of Israelite society. He was outraged to discover that some wealthy Jews were exploiting their poorer compatriots, charging excessive interest, and even enslaving children for debts. Nehemiah publicly confronted the culprits, demanding that they cease these unjust practices and restore the properties they had taken. His decisive action not only brought immediate relief to the oppressed, but also established a precedent of social justice that would echo through generations. Nehemiah's reform also included measures to strengthen Israel's national and religious identity. He implemented policies to encourage more people to live within Jerusalem, understanding the importance of having a vibrant and well-populated capital. Nehemiah also took steps to purify the priesthood, removing those who had married foreign women and compromised their dedication to temple service. These actions aimed to restore the sanctity of worship and reinforce Israel's cultural and religious boundaries. A crucial aspect of Nehemiah's renewal was the re-establishment of Sabbath observance. He noticed that many people were treating the day of rest like any other, engaging in work and trade. Nehemiah saw this not just as a violation of the law, but as a symptom of weakened spirituality. He implemented strict measures to ensure that the Sabbath was respected, including closing the city gates to prevent merchants from entering. This emphasis on the Sabbath served to reorient the rhythm of community life around divine commandments. Nehemiah also focused on reforming the system of tithes and offerings for the temple. He found that the Levites and singers responsible for temple service had been neglected and forced to work in the fields to survive. Nehemiah reorganized the collection and distribution system of tithes, ensuring that those dedicated to God's service were properly supported. This action not only improved the well-being of the temple servants, but also revitalized worship and religious practices in Jerusalem. Nehemiah's approach to reform was holistic, recognizing the interconnectedness of spiritual, social, and economic aspects of community life. He understood that religious fidelity, social justice, and economic prosperity were intrinsically linked. His reforms aimed to create an environment where faith could flourish, justice could prevail, and the people could prosper. This integrated vision of community renewal serves as a model for leaders and reformers to this day. A notable aspect of Nehemiah's reforms was his emphasis on education and understanding of the law. He did not settle for simply imposing rules, but worked to ensure that the people understood the meaning and purpose behind God's commandments. The sessions of reading and explaining the Torah were not one-off events, but part of an ongoing effort to create a community literate in its own tradition. Nehemiah recognized that lasting renewal required a people capable of thinking critically about their faith and practices. Nehemiah's reform also addressed issues of ritual purity and the separation from pagan practices. He took steps to purify the temple and its surroundings, removing foreign influences that had infiltrated worship. This included expelling Tobiah the Ammonite, who had been allowed to occupy a chamber in the temple. These actions demonstrate Nehemiah's determination to restore the sanctity of worship and maintain Israel's distinction as God's chosen people. An important element of Nehemiah's renewal was the re-establishment of religious festivals and celebrations. He reintroduced the observance of the Feast of Tabernacles, which had not been properly celebrated since the days of Joshua. These celebrations were not mere empty rituals, but opportunities for the people to reconnect with their history, reaffirm their identity, and renew their commitment to God. Nehemiah understood the power of communal practices in shaping identity and strengthening faith. Nehemiah's approach to reform was characterized by a combination of firmness and compassion. He did not hesitate to confront wrong practices and demand change, but he also showed empathy and genuine concern for the people's well-being. His exemplary leadership, including his refusal to accept the benefits to which he was entitled as governor to avoid burdening the people, set a standard of integrity and selfless service. This combination of firm principles and pastoral care was fundamental to the success of his reforms. The impact of Nehemiah's reforms extended far beyond his immediate time. His actions laid the foundations for a lasting renewal of Jewish identity and practice. Many of the elements he emphasized, Torah study, Sabbath observance, social justice, the purity of worship, became defining characteristics of Judaism in the centuries that followed. Nehemiah's approach to community reform provided a model that inspired generations of religious leaders and social reformers. The story of Nehemiah's reforms offers valuable lessons on transformative leadership and community renewal. It reminds us that true change requires more than superficial solutions. It demands a commitment to the profound transformation of hearts and minds. Nehemiah's example challenges leaders and communities of all eras to seek holistic renewal that
Let the Word of God touch your heart, like a light guiding you through the darkest moments. Every step in faith is a journey filled with hope. We are never alone on this path, for He is always by our side. Open your heart and let His love transform you, helping you spread that light to those around you.
encompasses all aspects of life, spiritual, social, and material. His vision of a just, faithful, and prosperous society continues.
Let the Word of God touch your heart, like a light guiding you through the darkest moments. Every step in faith is a journey filled with hope. We are never alone on this path, for He is always by our side. Open your heart and let His love transform you, helping you spread that light to those around you.
To inspire those who seek to build stronger communities aligned with divine principles.